Hello, everyone. Welcome to DLT. We're on week 7. Let me know any progress in the chat box as we go. We are still improving our overall well-being, but I feel like we're starting to go into the lasting lifestyle changes. We're going to talk more on that today. So I've set you up the first half of the class with really the fundamentals of fasting and what you would need to be able to do that successfully. And then the last half of the class is about really becoming your own self coach so that you can carry all of this with you and continue on your own, which I'm not sending you off yet, but you'll continue to get tools to be able to do it all on your own. Anyway, let us know any successes you've had this week with your fasting, any particular meals. We talked about sleep and energy. So if you tried out the sleep diary this past week, let me know how that went. Hopefully it was helpful to you. We talked about different ways that we can sleep better. And if you used any of these, let me know. And if you feel like they're working, let us know. First was to go to bed and wake up at the same time every day. So we talked about that circadian rhythm of our life where we can create a rhythm that gives our body ultimate functionality if it knows what's coming. And that's kind of how, people tell you that when you have kids. They're like, kids do better when they know the schedule. Kids do better when they stay on a schedule. And I don't know that that actually goes away. I think as adults, we do better when we're on a schedule, and our body does better when it knows what's coming. Other things that we can do to help our sleep is find a way to relax before bed each night. So hopefully y'all tried some things this week. That did not involve the cell phone or the TV or the computer, something non-digital related. Maybe you like the extent of using a digital device would be listening to a podcast, but setting the device aside. But finding ways to wind down can be really helpful in communicating to your body that it's time to go to sleep. I know a lot of people have trouble going to sleep. So getting into that routine of telling your body, hey, it's time to go to sleep, and getting into that routine of going to bed at the same time can be really helpful. And then trying to avoid large meals towards the end of the day, alcohol, caffeine towards the end of the day will disrupt sleep. And then getting your exercise in as well. All right. We're going to talk about change and why it's hard. And then we're going to dive into some habits, some ideas on habits. But we have this change arc, and you're probably somewhere on here. Maybe you can let us know where you're at. But it starts off with a proposed change. So fasting, whole foods, getting better sleep, moving our bodies. There could be a lot of different things changing for you. And the bigger question is, like, why? Why are you interested in changing? What are you looking to achieve? And then what does your particular change look like for you? Because we're all going to change differently. So the proposed change comes in, and then our mindset starts to shift up on this arc from, wow, this is kind of hard, to, I think first it comes like you're excited. This is exciting. I'm trying something new. And then once you get into it, you're like, this is kind of difficult. And then hopefully your mindset starts to shift over to, this is doable. And then to, this is easy. This is now part of my life. And I don't have to think about it. And that's where I would like for you to get to. It can start off as costly because there are a lot of adjustments that need to be made, but knowing in the long run that it's going to be rewarding, I think is ultimately the goal. Is in most things that we do in life, we're looking for that reward. So, is the cost worth the reward to you? And then it's going to be weird at first, but hopefully it starts to normal out for you. We're 7 weeks in, been fasting for a couple weeks. Fasting should be easier, signaling to your brain, I need more whole foods. I'm looking for whole foods. I'm trying to get rid of the junk. I'm trying to get rid of the processed things in a box. That should start to feel more normal to you as you figure out what you like in the whole food realm. And as you start to develop meals around those whole foods, and then everything starts to just fall into place. The rewards start coming, it's easier, and things feel normal. And that's where this new behavior starts to stick and then change occurs. So the change arc is takes time, but knowing that it's a mindset shift too that you got to work through. And you may waver back and forth on that mindset shift. I mean, we're not going to go over the arc continuously in a perfect angle. You may shift back a little bit and then go forward, shift back and then go forward 2 more steps. So it's a lifestyle. And just knowing that there's a lot that goes into creating new behaviors and creating change. And it's more than likely going to take more than the 7 weeks we put in, and it's probably going to take more than the 12 weeks that we have total. That's why I want to leave you with lots of tools to be able to continue forward and not end when the program ends. All right, so we have some key metrics to change. First is increasing our understanding. So to be able to do anything, you have to know what you're doing. And we've talked a lot about going into fasting, but being prepared for fasting, knowing that whole foods got to come first, sugar's got to be kicked out, healthy fats have got to go up. All that you should know by now is going to set you up for a better fast. Knowing your priorities. So, with that being said, are your whole foods in line? Are your sugars in line? Are you ready to go into fasting? Knowing where you are and what you need is prioritizing. What's important to me right now? What can I focus on? What step am I at? And am I ready to go forward? And then taking control. So, as you go out to eat and when with family and friends and you experience holidays, that's where you really like it's so much easier on a day-to-day basis when things are all steady and constant and day-to-day is pretty similar, but then you get thrown off with going out to eat and you get thrown off with the holiday, you get thrown off with someone bringing food into the office. Things like that is where you really have to commit to taking control, that I'm only going to stick to the foods and the plan that works best for me, and that's okay. It's going to be hard at first. Again, like the arc, it's going to be hard at first to say no to things. It's going to be hard to make different decisions, different choices when we're eating out, different choices when people bring things into the office. But that's all part of taking control and learning as we go. I always tell my daughter, I'm like, you are just like me. You like to learn the hard way. You like to test out all the other options, and then you're going to go the right way. So if it takes that, then that's what it takes. You have plenty of time. But I want you to focus in on your mindset as we continue forward and we're starting to develop these new habits. I want you to consider what your mind is telling you because we're talking to ourselves all day, every day. We're talking to ourselves more than anybody else. And I want you to hone into how you're talking to yourself. So there are two different ways that we can approach something, and it's with a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. And you can do this with all things in life. Growth is failure is an opportunity to grow. So we had Easter a couple of weekends ago. Maybe it didn't go well for you, but guess what? We have another holiday right around the corner. So, can you find some opportunities to grow if you experience some type of failure within like the holiday? It could be a failure anywhere. It could be last week was awful. I didn't get any movement in. Well, how can you grow from it? Fixed is failure is the limit of my abilities. And I hear a lot of people say things like, well, I'm just too busy to exercise, or everything is that's brought to the family gatherings is unhealthy. So, oh well. And that's where you get into a more fixed mindset. So I want you to think about which way are you going with your thoughts. Growth is I can learn to do anything I want. I can learn to change. I can learn to adjust. Challenges help me to grow. My effort and attitude determine my abilities. Fixed is I'm either good at it or I'm not. And fasting is a hard thing. So if you're not good at it at first, try again. 'Cause it's going to take a long time to get it down how you want it. My abilities are unchanging. I don't like to be challenged. I can either do it or I can't. Are y'all hearing any of these voices in your head? Growth finds feedback constructive. A fixed mindset takes feedback personally. They do not like feedback. They find it to be critical and they do not accept feedback well. Others in the growth mindset find feedback to be really helpful. Are you talking to someone about what's going on with you and what's working? And are you getting feedback from people around you? Constructive feedback. Growth is inspired by the success of others. They see other people doing well and they want to do well too. And they like to try new things. Fixed likes to stick with what they know. And you can waver between the two mindsets. You might get frustrated, you might want to give up, but that's where a fixed mindset will stop you in your tracks. So, if you are experiencing any fixed mindset thoughts, I want you to try to flip the script this week into a growth mindset. So, what can you do? Even if it's not perfect, that's okay. But what can you do? What are some small things that you can do this week to make adjustments to get to where you want to be? All right. And we got to be mindful of our habits because habits are something that come automatically to us. It's just what we do. We wake up, we snooze the alarm, we get out of the bed, we brush our teeth without thinking, we make coffee without thinking, we get dressed without thinking, we take a shower without thinking. All of these things are automatic. Like 90% of our brain works on an automated system. So, if you want to change a habit, you really got to cue in to what habit do I want to change? And then what is cueing the habit? That's the first step. So the cue is what kicks the brain into automatic mode and it tells us which habit to utilize. And then we go into the routine of a physical, mental, or emotional response to that cue. And then we get a reward. And that's a prize, telling your brain this habit is worth doing again and again and again, and that's how it becomes a habit. But you can break the routine. You cannot really break the cue, but you can break the routine if you hone into, all right, is it a certain time of day? So the guy that created the Habit Loop book, he had a certain time of day that he got up from his desk. It was 3 o'clock. He would get up from his desk. He would walk downstairs to the break room. He would get a cookie and he would chat with friends. And then he would go back upstairs and finish his last few hours of work. Well, he said he gained quite a few pounds doing that. And he thought about it. And maybe the habit of going to get a cookie every day wasn't exactly helping him. So at 3 o'clock, he tried different things. He got up, he went out for a walk instead. I didn't quite do it. So you got to know, are you getting the same type of prize telling your brain, this is good. I like this. This is going to work for me. And everyone's going to be different in what works for their particular habit. He tried going for a walk, didn't work. Didn't reward the brain enough. He tried eating a snack at his desk, eating something else at his desk instead, didn't work. So then the third thing was he tried going downstairs to the break room. No, he went downstairs, chatted with some friends, went back up to his desk, finished his work, and realized that he was good. He was just looking for a little social interaction. So you got to know, what do I actually want? And what am I looking for? Do I just need a little social break for a minute? Do I need the cookie? Do I need to go outside and get some fresh air? Do I need to move my body? What is it that I really need that's going to create a lasting habit? So taking those habits that are not benefiting us, trying to replace the routine with something else where you're still getting a reward. You're still feeling satisfied by it, but the routine is healthier and more beneficial for you. So start tracking your habits. If there's I want you to think of like at least one in particular you want to try to work on this week and write it down. When am I going to track it? When am I going to sit down and determine, how am I doing with that habit? Am I making the changes I'm really wanting to? And then write down what the goal is. So what is the goal in doing that habit, and what habit will help you to reach your particular goal? So what's the goal? Here's an example. Morning routine, I want to less stress, and I want to lose 10 pounds. So here's some potential habits that could help with getting the stress down and getting the weight off. Potential habits: meditate 20 minutes a day, walk 10 minutes a day, eat more plants, kick the sodas. You got to check in every day, especially when you're trying to change something that's automatic. How did I do today? Make a tiny chart. Make a note section in your phone. Did I get my meditation in for 10 minutes today? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Did I walk 10 minutes today? Did I eat plants with one meal? Simple check. Or stars. You can do a sticker system. You can do a check system. You can do the little bubbles in the phone. In the notes section of your phone, and check it off that way. But decide, when am I going to do my daily check-in? Is it going to be when I get in bed that night? Am I going to check in and see how I did on my habits that day? Is it going to be at lunch that day? Is it going to be over breakfast? Decide when the daily check-in will happen, and then have a weekly progress review. All right, what worked with the meditation? What didn't work, and why? Do I need to adjust the meditation? Do I need to adjust the walking? Do I need to adjust incorporating more plants? And if so, what does that look like? So creating habits for the next week based on previous week's progress. The more detailed you get into your habits, the better. So what needs to change? Maybe I'm just like not really getting the meditation in. So maybe if I set a specific time of day when I'm going to do it, meditate for the first 10 minutes of the lunch break. Perfect. Walk 10 minutes before work, or after I get dressed, before I walk out the door. Determine like that space where you're going to fit that habit in. Eat plants and breakfast smoothie. So be more detailed in where you're going to put the plants. What kind of plants are you going to eat? You get the idea. The more detailed, the better for your habits. And then keep going with your daily check-in and then your weekly check-in until it just is what it is. That's what you do. So our goals for this week are: continue fasting with our whole foods, always. Start to increase the movement even more if you're ready. Increase the sleep and the energy that we've talked about this past week. And then I want you to focus on the daily habits. Is there anything in particular that you feel like is holding you back? And if so, what could you do differently? How could you replace that habit to make it more beneficial to you and closer to meeting your goals? Um, Replacing a habit is going to be much easier than trying to kick the habit altogether. So if you have a particular thing that's holding you back, like eating while making dinner, for example, replacing what you're eating can be easier than not eating while making dinner, if that makes sense. So replacing it first, and then you can work on kicking it all together, but replacing it with something better, closer to the plan, is better than trying to kick it all together at first. It's typically easier to replace a habit than try to break it cold turkey. But you know yourself. You're the only one that knows yourself, and you know what works for you. So if you can go cold turkey, then try it out. And if it doesn't work, then try replacing the habit. So mine was eating while making dinner. I just got stressed whenever dinner time was around because I have a 1 and 3-year-old that are being crazy, and I'm trying to cook dinner in the kitchen. Stressed me out. So I would find myself eating before I would even start cooking. And then I switched over to just putting out raw veggies and nibbling on those while I made dinner. And then I switched over to hot tea, making like a decaf tea just to have something in my hand to chill me out, hand mouth motion, replacing it with a tea and then water, and then going in that direction with my habit. So replacing easy and then like replacing it easy, like closer to what you're used to, and then working your way down. So you can do that with your sugars. You can do that with your sleep habits. You can do that with increasing your healthy fats. You can do it with your meals, your snacking. What habits do you really want to tap into this next week? And how can you get more detailed with them, more specific? And can you replace the habit with something that is better for your overall plan? And then lastly, I want you to think about your why. And we haven't really talked much about this, but it's super important to have a why. Do you want to be healthy? That focus is really going to be a driving motivator for you to continue forward for the next couple of weeks as we finish out, but also as you go on your own. Like, why do you want to do it? And it has to be strong enough that it's moving you forward towards your goals. It has to be a strong enough reason why. And maybe write that down with the particular goal that you want to work on this week that has those habits tied to it that will ultimately reach your goal and ultimately reach your why. So it's all tied together and it's all inside our heads. So we got to get it out. And a lot of times just writing things down can really make them come to life. So maybe take a moment this week, think about your why. Why do we want to be healthy? What particular goal do we think is going to make us healthier? And what habits are we going to focus on this week to make that happen? What changes do we need to do? All right. That's all I have for week 7. Any questions or comments? Let me know. All right. We will meet again next week. If you need anything at all, feel free to reach out, and I'll get this presentation out to y'all shortly, as well as some meal ideas for the week if you need some inspiration. And thanks for joining. Bye, everybody. Have a great day.